Episode 14 with Tom Baulch is one of my most favourite episodes up until date. He's a young man that's grown rapidly on social media to over 100k followers. He works on providing pro athlete programs and helping a lot of the youth get confidence around going into the gym. Furthermore, he's a footy player and he's an advocate around health and fitness. But one of the most important things that we see with people, especially in Australia, as they grow up, is that a lot of them try to get cut down. And that has happened to Thomas with no exception. Today, he really goes and deep dives into what confidence and self-esteem is, how he's got to where he's gotten to, and how he's fought off the people that have really tried to cut him down over the last few years. This is an episode not to be missed, and if you haven't already, make sure you follow Squeezing the Plums. Let's get to the show. I send a question to every single guest before they come on, and it is, if all the men above you, aged above you, died tomorrow, and you had to do a TED talk to young, hungry men, right? What would you be comfortable talking about to them? And so your answers were confidence, social media, and building a brand. So if you had a young man listening to you now, and I know the majority of your audience are young men, what is the context about your life that I would need to understand in order for me to want to listen to you talk about those topics?
Yeah, so I guess that all comes from validity, right? Like, you have to have actually done it before. So I guess starting off with confidence as the first pillar or the first answer of that, I've probably always been a pretty confident person, and I think that was instilled in me from my parents, which I'm really grateful for. But as I got older, I started to realize that the confidence a lot of the time was just kind of a front for what I was feeling on the inside, because on the inside I might not have been that confident, but like on the outside I was this flamboyant, obnoxious, loud individual, and everyone's like, oh my God, this kid's so confident, you know. But there was actually a deeper kind of, upon deeper reflection, I actually wasn't really that confident on the inside. So I think that's a really funny kind of balance there.
And was there a certain part of yourself that you weren't confident about? Like, you know, it may have been on the footy field, you may have been confident, but was it, you know, speaking to people your own age or older, or was it, you know, the views of other people? What was it that you weren't confident about inside of you that you maybe mirrored the opposite outside?
I think that for me, I always thought that I could have been something better, and I never really was. So I kept lying to like myself and other people that like I am better than what I am. And it would be such small kind of like lies or just things that I would do. It could be as small as having 20 disposals on the weekend. I tell everyone I had 25. It's like a small lie, right? It doesn't mean anything because they don't care whether you had 20 or 25, and you'd go and lie about it just to kind of get their approval, to make them think that you were better than what you actually are. And that, for a period of time, made me feel better because I was like, oh, I'm this good, or, you know, I'm doing this, or I'm earning this much money, or I sleep this many hours every night, you know. And that was okay for a period of time until it got to this period where it really started to eat away at me. And I was like, I'm actually lying to every single person around me. And that was a weird thing, because I was like, I'm a fraud, you know. I've got this imposter syndrome, and I've always had it. And only since I started doing or saying the things I'm going to do and actually going out and doing it, I think Chris Will has a really good quote where it's like, outwork your self-doubt. You don't get affirmations. You don't kind of affirm yourself by shouting in the mirror. You get your affirmations from actually saying what you're going to do and going and doing it. So that was a big thing for me.
Yeah, building a body of evidence, right? To show yourself that
exactly
you've
right.
actually
Stack of evidence.
Stack of fucking evidence.
Yeah.
You talked about being better, right? And that's something that a lot of aspiring young hungry men want to be. They want to be better. They want to always grow. But in order to do that, obviously there's a sense of like needing the validation of others to make sure that they get that hunger and that drive to keep going. I guess, where did you seek validation from others, and who did you seek validation from the most when you were growing up?
I think I've always sought the most validation from my family because they're the closest to me, especially my old man, because he's quite successful in the world of business and entrepreneurship and football, just like everything that he does, he seems to excel at. And that was always like, I've got to get to this level. Even we'd go out and just like, I remember we were in the UK with my family, and we went and played 18 rounds of golf with some friends. And my dad just like picked up the golf club and just dominated. Like, and I was like, why can't I be just good at everything? And I didn't realize at the time, like I'm 17 or 16 and I haven't had, I'm not 50. I haven't had the amount of years on the, on the earth to kind of learn all these things. So I think that validation I really wanted from my family all the time. And I think that even if they would say, I'm proud of you or I love you, if you don't love yourself, then like those words don't mean anything to you, because you could be telling them a lie as well. But I think always as a human being, you want the validation from friends as well. And that's a really difficult one, because it's not until you get a bit older that you realize that like, it doesn't really matter what people think about you, like their validation doesn't mean anything. And the only thing that really means anything is like, if you can validate yourself.
You speak about lying, and there's a lot of people growing up. There's a lot of people now, but I remember personally growing up having something of a similar nature. So I played footy and cricket as well, right?
Yeah.
And instead of like, my biggest KPI was marks. How many marks could I get? So I always remember like, taking like, if I got 10 marks a game in a pack mark, that was a great game.
Yeah.
And so if I got 8, I'd say 10. Even
Why?
And like, it's funny now, you see guys on their Hinge profile. Are you 6'3" or 6'2"? Are you 5'11" or 6 foot?
Favorite one.
You motherfuckers, like, and
Bro,
so
you are not 6'1". You're not.
legit. And so what I want to know is, from your perspective, what are the pitfalls of lying? Because initially it might seem that it's a white lie, right? But consequentially for yourself, you hit a point in the road where you're like, this is disarming, this is disabling, this is actually like affecting me and I can't grow from that. So that's my observation. But what do you think are the biggest pitfalls of lying or white lying, especially at a young age, that will, hinder you from being able to grow?
Yeah, I think that the number one thing that you have to figure out is why are you lying? Like, what are you lying about and why are you doing it? And like internally be self-aware, look at yourself and figure out what those things are. And, like I said before, the biggest pitfalls are they just like eats away at you and you're like, I'm a fraud. Every time you say something, it's like, I'm an imposter, I'm a fraud, I'm lying. And if you can't figure out a way to realize that and change that, then you're just never going to, you're never going to grow. You're never going to be able to stand in front of a group of people, even if you do have 100,000 followers or whatever, even if you are earning X amount, it's still, you have this like, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve any of this. So why do you think that you lied when you would say 10 marks instead of 8? Do you know why?
Yeah, I can tell you, because the approval of... So I struggled with friendships growing up massively, and I was wildly insecure about that. Also, for me, it was like, well, if I haven't got a great deal of mates, then, I want to be able to show off to at least my family or something that I've done something really good, right? So 10 marks, my old man played like Melbourne under-19s footy. So like, it was like, 10 marks on the weekend. And they were good fucking marks. It wasn't like, they were good marks.
These are pack marks.
It was literally, there was like 4 blokes trying to chop my arms. And like back then you could, and I could stick them out, right? And that was because I needed something to lift me up. because at school I couldn't get lifted up. I felt like I was always getting pushed down. So I'd go home, I want to get lifted up. But then, let's say you have a shit week. It's like, well, fuck, how much can I lie to lift myself up? And in order for you to try to lift yourself up, what you're doing is exactly what you're saying. There's a deep part of you that knows you're full of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that hurts.
Yeah.
And I think there's an interesting juxtaposition to that is, in order for you to grow, sometimes you have to pretend to be the person that you want to be in order to be able to grow into that person. So it is quite a juxtaposition there. You also see people that want to grow. Sometimes they're having to act and embody that future version of themselves. And they might feel the same way, but it's like you're trying to operate on a different frequency. And so that's where it becomes like a really interesting science.
It's so hard to like be self-aware and be like, shit, I'm lying to everyone around me, and then to try and change it, because because you can get away with it. But the worst thing is, like, when people are going behind your back and like, he's bullshitting, like, I can't believe he's bullshitting about that. Like, and it's also a really weird thing because not a lot of people have the balls to bring it up with you. Like, not many people, if you do say, I've had 10 marks, not many people say, no, mate, you only had 8. Like, people are too scared to do that a lot of the time. So, I think that, sometimes as humans, it's good to just like pull someone back and say, hold on, mate, like, that's bullshit. Like, check yourself and tell the truth. So it's always something that my parents always said to me. It's like, tell the truth. And I never really understood it until like I got to 23, 24. So, took a bit of time.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting then, the relationship with lying and confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk about confidence that you've shown on the outside versus confidence that you have within. So I'm going to talk to you about self-esteem versus self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference between the two?
So I love exploring the dynamic of these two qualities, I guess. So confidence or self-confidence is, in my opinion, this is just the way that I see it. I could be completely wrong, but this is how I see it. Self-confidence is, confidence on the outside. It's what everyone else sees or perceives as what you, the way that you handle yourself. And that can be a really good front for low self-esteem. So I think that self-esteem is everything that's on the inside, and that's the important one. Self-confidence is fugazi. It's outside. It doesn't really matter. Like this, the most important thing is your self-esteem. And they also have this kind of like inverse relationship as well. It's like, if your self-esteem is really low, your self-confidence appears really high. So on the outside, you're like this confident, smiling, happy person, but on the inside, it's like a real dark place. And if someone can start to level that up, or are really, really high self-esteem, generally you don't see them as like this really confident person because they're humble, because they believe in everything they do. They don't have to go out and say, I'm this good at this, I'm this good at that. They're humble people, and like they're not seen as this really confident person, right? Because they believe in what they do. They don't have to kind of go out and say it. And like, finding a good level of them, or a high self-confidence and then kind of humility, is like, that's where I see the best balance of it. But yeah, generally, and I know a lot of people that are really confident, and I also know that they really struggle with their self-esteem. So for me, just like leveling out the self-esteem, and how do you do that? Probably comes back to that lying thing, being an imposter, being a liar, and it just comes back to saying what you're going to do and doing it. Like, if I say I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m., I'm going to get out there and do it. Like, if I say I'm going to work out today, go and work out. If I say I'm going to run 15 Ks, go out and do it. And then, like, if you say in your mind, I'm going to do it, and then you don't, it's just another little roadblock that it's like, I'm a fraud, I'm useless, I'm weak. You just have to do the things that you say you're going to do. Reply to your emails, whatever it is, if it's not in a fitness sense. Build a business. I said to myself, I'm going to build a brand, and I did it. So like, it's a longer term thing, but also I said I'm going to do it, and I went out and did it. So it gives me confidence that I can say what I'm going to do, and I actually go out there and do it.
confidence is a sexy thing to talk about. Self-esteem is not as sexy, right?
Yeah.
And so let's say you've got a guy, it doesn't matter his age, but let's say you've got a guy that's low on self-esteem, high on perceived confidence, right? And your first step of advice is stop fucking lying, right? What would be another one or two pieces of advice? You've said do the work, do the action.
Do the work.
But have you got any other advice for that person or ways that you want to think about it in order for that person to get out of that inflicting, I guess, dialogue that they have of themselves?
Well, I think that you've also got very easy tools to be able to do that. So doing the work's probably more of a mental / discipline sort of thing. But then there's all the simple things that nobody does. It's like when people come to me and say, oh, I'm really struggling, mentally, or, I don't feel like I've got much confidence, or, whatever it is. I get a lot of DMs of people kind of struggling with various things. And I'm like, okay, how's your diet? Do you sleep 8 hours every night? Do you have a consistent wake time, sleep time? Do you drink 3 liters of water every single day? Do you go to the gym? Do you weightlift? Do you do cardio once or twice a week? Are you involved in a community? Do you play a social sport, a team sport? Do you go to Pilates or something where there's a group? And people always come back to me and they say no to all these things. I'm like, well, figure out what you need to do that's going to make you happy, but then just do the easy things that are that you've been put on this earth and we've been doing for thousands of millions of years as human beings. Do those things and you'll just be infinitely happier. So I think that just bringing it back to the basics, it sounds so simple. And again, it's not very sexy. It doesn't get any views on social media when you say it. No one cares. It gets less likes. It's, you're more likely to get more likes on something that's a little bit more controversial, but sometimes that's just what works. Strip it back to the bare bones of it and just do the simple things and you'll just feel infinitely happier.
Talking about likes on social media, right? On your social media, there's 2 things I've realized that get a lot of likes, right?
Yep.
You getting in biffs,
yeah,
right?
Lots.
On the footy field,
Lots.
And you with your rig out because you got a fucking rip and rig, right? So how does that affect your confidence? Because I know, based off listening to you speak on other podcasts, I know having small social connections with you, that self-imposed, I guess, view of how people see you, probably didn't articulate that well, but how people see you on socials is not necessarily you.
Right.
So when you're displaying that because you know that you're trying to build a business versus that may not be deep down in the core of what you want to be, how does that affect your confidence? And are you repeating the same cycle that you did as a kid?
It's so hard, isn't it? Because like you said, what gets views on social media and the way that people perceive you on social media and the way that you're trying to build your brand, because more likes means more views, which means more people on your website, more sales. That also could come at the cost of your image, because a lot of people are like, well, this bloke's a wanker, look at him, he gets in all these fights. I reuse most of the fight clips. I don't really get in that many fights, but it's a really tough balance because you're trying to post things that are going to go viral, but then you're also trying to preserve, what image you have of yourself on social media. And then people meet you out or whatever, at a footy club, and they say, oh, you're a lot different to what I expected you to be based off your social media. And it's a really hard balance. It's such a hard balance. But I think that my advice to anyone is to find maybe it's 50-50, but get people engaged by those clips and that content. And then kind of the people that are following you, they're the people that really know you, because then the other 50% are just dialing down and this is what I'm actually like. I'm pretty mellow, I'm pretty chill, I'm pretty realistic, I'm the same as everyone else kind of thing. And I think that's when people really start to understand you. But it's a really hard balance on social media. It's a really hard balance.
And I guess, when we're talking about that initial question I asked you around what context do we need to understand in order for us to be able to respect your opinions on social media and building a brand? I mean, you've built your brand now to 100,000 Instagram followers. I don't know even how many TikTok followers. You've got a community, you've got a run group, you've got a website that does supplements, that does elite pro athlete programs. So you're definitely someone that is well versed in a number of different ways. At how old?
24.
At 24, to be able to speak to people that are wanting to get into this field. So if someone was to start up in this field, so let's use me for example, right? I am not a social media dude. I am now running a podcast on men's health, which is like the least sexiest thing that men want to listen to, right? So I want to build my brand, and I'm like, how the fuck do I build it in a way that keeps authentically me to some extent, right? And also is going to be enough to attract the right clientele. So what do you do with someone that comes up to you like that? If you were to be, let's say, someone that's more of an advisor in that position?
I think the number one thing that everyone gets so confused about on social media, they're like, oh, I need to make it look pretty, or I need to do this or do that. It's like, if you're starting out, one, be controversial. Content is so saturated right now. Like, it is so hard to get a viral video. I used to be very well versed on what would be viral, and now even sometimes I have to chop and change things to get that virality. So I think that controversial is a really good place to start, because that expands your reach. You know, you can get 2 million people in a day just from being controversial. And then you've got to dial in on, so like I said before, find that kind of 50-50 mix if you want to, depending on how controversial you want to be, find a good mix of it. But also you want to be able to add value to people's lives. So there's being controversial, but still adding value to people's lives. So for me, like, it's not really controversial, but like, I'll post a video of me getting, into a fight or something, and that's like the hook of the video. And it's like, oh, I always get bashed playing footy, and instantly people's like zombie brains that are just scrolling on social media, it's like instantly, oh, a fight, like, how interesting. This is more interesting. And then the value out of that is saying, like, I started doing boxing, and like, I really was scared about doing boxing, but I really worked hard, and you can work hard too and achieve anything you want to achieve, if you're just willing to kind of dip your toe in the deep end. So I think that finding a way to hook people in is so important. Your first 3 seconds of every video is just like a game changer, especially on TikTok, Instagram Reels. Like, that's your biggest game changer, your 3-second hook, and then find a way to add value in the back end, 15 to 20 seconds. That's what I kind of use as my umbrella for every single video. And the same if it's not a fight, if it's me with my shirt off or whatever. Again, it's hooked, engaging, but that can also be quite, I think it's a difficult way to run your social media, because then your whole brand is built on your body, and it's quite a dangerous thing to do, because then if you want to go and have a cheesecake or add some sugars to your coffee, you're like, oh, should I be doing this? Or, or having beers on the weekend. It's like, oh, hold on, like, my body sells the program. So that is also a really difficult balance, that you don't want people to just be all in for your body. You want to have some sort of personality, especially in the fitness industry, personality and value add as well. So like anything from, nutrition to, to exercise that you should be doing and all that type of stuff as well.
That's really cool. And I think, when we're talking about, getting started, obviously adding value is super important. Adding a hook, I think there's a really good book called Jab, Jab, Hook, or Jab, 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 Hook.
Love it.
And there's a lot of ways, I guess, for a lot of people now, content creation is not a joke. It's a job.
It is.
It's a fucking hard job. And I'm learning it, right? I'm like, oh my God, to get set up, to even think of the narrative you want to display, to want to be able to know, editing is
it's the most difficult thing.
It is
it's so difficult, especially in a podcast. Like, you've got these massive files. You've got to do, everything on potentially Premiere Pro. Like, the easiest way to edit videos is just like CapCut on your phone, which is just a fantastic platform. or you can do everything on Premiere Pro on your laptop. But yeah, it's really important. And I say this to everyone, like, don't get someone else to edit your videos. Like, edit it yourself to start, so you understand what has to go into these videos. Edit yourself, get photos done, and then a lot of people forget that social media, you also have to have a really big creative side. Like, it's not just, post a reel and you're done with it. You actually have to think of, what video am I going to post today that is going to be engaging, is going to add value. And if you're posting 365 times a year, mate, you run out of content pretty quick, especially if you're doing like fitness or like men's health. Like, there's only so much you can talk about. But that's, you have to, a really good way to kind of get good video ideas is go like men's health on Google, and then like see the top 5 kind of searches that come up, and like, this is what people are searching. This is what they want information on. I can use this to create a good video.
That's awesome. In terms of then, I guess, what actually a hard day's work looks like as a content creator, right? What does an actual hard day's work look like? Like, you were to go, right, you know what? Today, I'm fucking burying my head in the sand, right? But, because you've got people that work 9 to 5. They've got absolutely zero idea of what it takes to run a channel, right? What did it take for you to run a channel? And by the way, this channel, when you get started, it doesn't give you return. So what's a hard day's work look like for you now?
Well, I'll say what happened when I first started, because anyone out there that does want to start might have to realize how difficult it is to start. And then people see me now and they're like, oh, you're so lucky you get to do content creation for a job. It's like, bruts, you don't know where I started, man. Like, I was first year, second year uni, created my business, which was originally called Pandemic Training because it was created during the pandemic. Not much longevity in that name. But at the time you thought coronavirus could last forever, to be honest, the way it was going. So I was Pandemic Training. I was doing PT, and I was full-time uni. So I was wake up in the morning doing one-on-one PTs because that's all you could do at that time. 4 a.m. in the morning, wake up, PT, uni, and then I was kind of trying to build my business as well on the side and do content creation. And my days, no joke, were 4 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day for a pretty solid 12 months. And then I started to chill out in the second year because like you do start to burn out pretty quick. But like that was my day pretty much every single day for a year. And then people see you like, oh, you're so lucky you get to do, like, bro, I worked so hard to get here, man. So like that's kind of how it started. And now for a content creation day, it's a bit different for me because I do run a business and have a website and all these different moving parts. But I guess for most people that are just doing content creation, you wake up, if you're in fitness, you have to go to the gym at least once or twice every day. So you probably start off with that, and then you'll go and do your content, and your content might overlap with what you're actually doing in the day, or it might just, you go out, you do your 15K run, and then you'll get someone to kind of like film you just like running down the road because you want to actually do the workout, and then you want to get like filmed after. So it's like good quality. If you're doing a 15K run, you don't want to like hold your phone the whole time or like change the phone direction. So, and then editing would take anywhere between 2 hours to an hour to 2 hours
per video.
Yeah, for a video. So that can be pretty crazy. Or a good way that I like to do it is kind of like write out 5 scripts on a Monday, and I do a lot of voiceovers. So I'll get 5 video ideas. Usually they take about an hour per video idea, and then the script as well. And then, you kind of like write them all out so you've got a good content plan for the week. And then you spend a lot of your time just like emailing back and forth with brands. Like we did a massive brand deal on the weekend with 2XU, where we did a big run club, and then you have to kind of like edit content. You do a lot of back and forth with brands in terms of like content creation. So that's kind of how it all works. And yeah, if you can get brand deals out of that, that's usually the plan.
It's interesting because everything you've said there all ends up being, it's 100% commission. It's like you do the work, you get the result. You do the work, you don't get the result. it doesn't matter either way. You got to do the work, and one way or the other, you're going to get it or you won't get it, but you got to try.
Yeah.
Right. And you got to try, and you got to try, and you got to try.
Exactly right.
And it's a relentless game that you're in. You spoke about being a PT, and before we even get into your pro athlete programs and what you do for that demographic, you started as a PT. What got you into PT? Was there anything in your upbringing growing up that you were like, this is it?
Yeah, so PT for me, like I was always a reasonably fit person. I played a lot of sport and I kind of got into the gym at like 15, 16. And by the time I would have been 17 or 18, last year at school, I was reasonably fit, but I wasn't, not like bloody crazy Sam Sulek, I'm just like a regular kind of 18-year-old dude. But I remember my sister got a lot of, I guess, harassment and online bullying from her weight, and this was hectic, like really bad, like death threats, like full on, like Instagram accounts getting made about her, and like this, she really struggled with this, and it was like, it actually hits pretty close to home. Talking about it, it's so hard seeing someone that you love so much get affected by a ghost, really, because like you don't know who's doing it, and all my sister was thinking about was, who the hell would hate me this much that is like, or group of people that hate me this much that is doing this. So that was a big thing for me, like seeing her be affected so much by that. And she come to me and she said, like, and power to her, because, a lot of people, if they're getting these kind of threats, or, if it's about your weight, whatever it might be, a lot of people would really struggle to deal with it. But power to her, she said, well, this presents an opportunity. And she came to me and she said, well, can you write me up a gym program? And honestly, I had no idea what I was doing, but I was like, yep, sure. Gave her this gym program and started to see a massive shift in her mindset, her physical appearance. But really, it was all around how she felt and how she could hold herself. So that was kind of the start for me, and it's a crazy story how it all happened. And not saying I was at all responsible for this, but now she's in New York. She lives in New York. She's on a rowing scholarship at Fordham University. I'm actually going to watch her graduate in May, which is it's beautiful. It's so awesome. And that was kind of the first stepping stone for her, like to get into the gym. And then, in year 11, she got into rowing. So kind of the year after, once she started, that snowball kind of started to roll. Everything started, the dominoes started to fall for her. So that was, for me, the feeling of like, wow, this person has changed their life and I've been a part of it. For me, that was like the coolest like thing ever, and it made me feel great. So after school, I was like, well, I went and did, had a gap year and went and studied, to be a PT. And then I went to university and did sports journalism and got my degree. I don't really know why I did that, but I was doing PT the whole time that I was at uni, and I was like, this is the most unbelievable feeling, seeing people walk into the gym and have a frown on their face. And every time people would walk out, they'd be laughing and smiling. And it's like, I just wish everyone could feel like this. And I got really frustrated for a period of time, because I was like, why the hell is not everyone doing, like, this is like free dopamine, right? Like you just getting in and like gymming. Well, it wasn't free because you had to pay, but but it's like, this is dopamine. Like, this makes people feel good. Why are not more people doing this? And that's why I ended up jumping online. I was like, well, more people deserve to feel this amazing feeling of, I can change my life. And that's kind of what got me into PT at the start.
Take me back to, obviously, when you first heard about your sister getting bullied. So I've got a younger sister as well. She's significantly younger. She's like 16 years younger than I am,
wow.
right? So it doesn't matter, I guess, the age discrepancy, but when you're like a strong masculine brother, you want to look after your sister, and she comes up to you and she's like, I'm being harassed or I'm being bullied. What are the emotions and thoughts that go through that point besides the PT stuff, and did you do anything else besides the PT stuff to help her navigate through that?
It was a difficult period for us because my sister and I were both in Western Australia, and my family all lived at that time in Noosa. So if you have any idea of the geography of Australia, that's like a pretty long way away.
For all those Americans,
listening. But yeah, it's a long way away. So my sister didn't really have much family or anything to kind of look after her. And we probably weren't even that close before that. We're brother and sister, and we've gotten closer over the years. But at that time, you're a young teen. You don't really care about anything. So when that happened, it was just and I'd never really dealt with bullying in my life that much, a little bit here and there, but nothing really like this. And I was kind of just well, I'm a terrible person to ask for motivation, because I'm well, do you want to change it, or what do you want to do? You can, and I still say this to people all the time. Well, you can cry about it, we can do whatever, but the reality is, this is what people are, this is what people are bullying you for. You have two choices. You can continue to wallow about it and cry. And people ask me all the time, they're this is happening, or people tease me for this. I'm well, can you change it? Yes, go and change it, and that's probably a mindset that I get from my old man. It's probably an old fashioned mindset, but it's the way that I've lived my life. And it's if you can change something about yourself and you really want to, let's go change it and let's do it together. And that was just something that I was well, I'll help you in whatever way. And it's more the question is are you unhappy? And if they say yes, then how are we going to change it? Let's change it.
So, that's obviously a really practical way to go about it. And I reckon, as most blokes, it's all right, well, you come with a problem, let's try to fix it, right? You hear a lot of women at some stage saying, we just want a man to listen. But we're well, fucking, let's get you out of there.
I do it with my girlfriend all the time. We're I'm going to provide you the solution. That she doesn't want the solution, she just wants to vent sometimes. And it's okay, well, let's just vent. But, and that's, it's a hard thing to get through sometimes to females, but it's here's the solution, let's go do it. And it's a process. It's like a 3-month process of just, you've got to feel the emotion. You have to feel the emotion, you have to get it out. And then once you do, let's get to work.
Were the bullies saying the truth? And not the ones that were far right or far left in terms of death threats and stuff. And you don't have to go into what the criticism was, but did you look at some of those comments and go, well, part of that is actually true? Because I know there's a lot of people that suffer bullying, right? But they perceive it as bullying because they are neglecting what is actually true. And someone can be a cunt of a thing and tell you that in a really demeaning way, but underneath all of that, there might actually be truth. Was there truth?
Yes, there was. The death threats, obviously, this is
far left, far right.
Yeah, that's
fuck off. Those
fuck
guys
off. That's crazy. But there was things that 100%. And I said before, I didn't really get bullied, but there was a period of my growing up phase when I was year 4, year 5, small country town, and everyone was everyone would call me a show off. That was my nickname, show off. And it was a period of time for me where I was hold on a second, maybe I'm showing off a little bit. Just pull it back, have some humility, and shut up. And that was the first time that I realized, hold on, you're being a wanker kind of thing. And yeah, it was the same, unfortunately with my sister. Like I said, you have to feel the emotion, but some of the trolls, they were saying things that might have been true. And yeah, you kind of just have to action them. sometimes.
It's a super powerful lesson because people demonize bullying, but sometimes it can be the biggest smack in the face for you to create change that's positive for yourself. And, now you're in a stage with your own life where I know for a fact that, to get to a stage where you have 100,000 followers, you're going to cop heat all the fucking time, right? And you're going to have people that talk about you without you even there, without no context to you. So my thing for you is, what are some of the bullies saying about you now that you go, it's probably fair enough?
Yeah.
And what is it that some of the bullies are saying about you that they're so fucking wrong, but maybe you haven't had the opportunity to say that they're wrong?
Wow, interesting question. I love that. What do people say about me that's true online? Well,
Genuinely true.
genuinely true.
Genuinely true. Don't worry about, I don't give a fuck who's listening. You just tell me what you think that they say are true. And if nothing is of what they said is true, don't say anything.
Yeah.
But if some things are true and you perceive it as bullying, right?
See, I perceive nothing as bullying. Like, for me, I don't even believe in, like, I don't really believe in, like, bullying. Like, it's like, if you have something to say, like, say it. But I think that more people should be less offended by it. It's like, don't get offended by it. Take the criticism. Is it constructive? Is it something that I need to work on? And if it is, 100%. Like, I dealt with some kind of like online criticism pretty heavily. We had this like massive social media kind of, I guess you call it beef is what it was, and there was a lot of things that this specific individual said about me that was true. I remember saying, he's going out too much. I bloody was going out too much. I was going out every weekend, and I was also masking my feelings of, I just moved to a new city, Melbourne, and this was probably 8 or 9 months ago now, and moved to a new city, and my way of meeting new friends was going out and drinking, and then kind of drinking this is, probably 15 months ago when I first moved here. The drinking and the going out just snowballs, and like, if I played a bad game of footy, I'd come back to Melbourne and just like get pissed. And it was like, because that was fun, right? Going out on a Saturday, that was awesome. But it's like, hold on a second, this is not, and it was also all free as well. Like, everything was free. So I was like, free beers, let's do it.
Let's go.
Right, let's do it. And that was a snowball for me, because it was like, the drinking turns into, having a vape, and then having a vape turns into whatever else. And then I just got slammed on social media for it. I was like, hold on a second, you're so right. Like, I was going out too much. So that was one big thing that I changed. And then there was a few other things as well that were being posted about me. Like, sometimes I'd say, first 5 comments gets a hoodie or whatever. And because I did so many of the giveaways, some of them I just would forgotten about that I did. So I was like, he's doing all these fake giveaways. It's like, well, I don't do fake giveaways, but I might have forgotten about 1 or 2. So I was like, oh crap, I've got to go follow all these up. So there were 2 big things that I remember. I was like, I really need to change that. And like, I do barely go out anymore. I didn't drink for 6 months or do anything, or go out, literally not leave my room pretty much for 6 months. And probably lying as well. And that was when everything really started to snowball and change for me. So that was like a few things that were said on social media about me that I just snapped out. I was like, I need to change these things. And the criticism, I wouldn't call it bullying.
Let's call it someone with an intention to tear you down.
Yeah,
right?
exactly right.
So let's call it that.
Yeah.
You don't perceive it as bullying, but let's
The
say
intention,
you can read their writing and you go, this cunt, is like, I'm not sorry, this cunt is trying to like tear me down.
Yeah.
Right? I don't perceive it as bullying, but it is genuinely not true.
Yeah.
Right?
And that was the thing, because there was so much other stuff that was so far from the truth and like such a big lie. But then there were some things that I really looked back on, I was like, you know what, I probably could change that about myself. And it was really good. And I did. And I'm probably the happiest that I've ever been in my entire life because of that. So, mate, if you are getting torn down by people, have a look at yourself and say, hold on, do I actually need to change? Because like, I think the most toxic thing you can do is be like, no, I'm fine, I'm perfect. I'm perfect. And right now, I'd look at myself and say, there's still things I need to change about myself. You know, I'm not perfect. I never will be. But I'm so much more content with where I am in life.
Mm. Have you got an example for someone? Because people think that they get ripped, right? Have you got an example or a comment that sticks out to you that you saw and you're like, wow, that's so wrong?
Oh, the ones that I hate are like when people would just say, well, when people say this guy's a flog or he's arrogant or just like anything like that on social media, or he's a scammer or any of that type of stuff. But the flog and the arrogant ones really get me because you've never met me. So how the hell would you know what I'm like in real life? You've got this preconceived idea of social media of who I am, but please don't put an idea in your own head of how much of a wanker I am when you've never sat down and had a conversation with me. And they're the ones that really get me because I'm like, how can someone hate someone so much? I've always thought like this, like, how can you ever say that you hate someone if you've never met them? Because it baffles me. I can't dislike anyone that I haven't met. It's impossible. I just don't know them. So like, I don't have an opinion on them. But people get so in their head, they're like, I hate this guy. Bro, y'all never met me.
Yeah. And I think this is important because anyone listening, right? If you're commenting on someone else's social media post, especially if you're young, and you're commenting and you're labeling the person, right? So calling them arrogant or them a flog, or you're talking about them without them really having a great option or right to reply. If you're spreading that level of negative shit to other people, it's the same thing as lying in a sense that you are creating this big black hole for yourself. And you may not see it. It might just boost your self-esteem or that self-confidence because you're willing to write it. But this is the danger, I reckon, with the current society at the moment growing up, is that we have a lot of people willing to comment, right? And still, the biggest fear for people in the world is public speaking.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of people are good at public writing, but the biggest fear is public speaking.
That is such a crazy, that's crazy. It's so true as well. It's so true.
It's so true. So, but it's going back to what do you say and what do you do that creates a big black dark hole for yourself, and what do you say and what do you do that fills that shit with light?
Yeah.
And you know, I think it's interesting now when you look at people that have the intention of trying to rip you down. If you realize that that person is just self-destructing whilst they're trying to destruct you, it's a nice way of being able to reposition how you take on that criticism.
Yeah.
And then also you go, is this true?
Well, that's the number one thing. Like if you're being torn down by anyone or anyone's trying to tear you down, I said this to my sister when she was going through it. It's like they are dealing with stuff 10 times worse than what you're dealing with. It was the same when I was going through the social media kind of beef, I guess. It was like the people that are doing this, that are trying to tear me down, are so just like, I don't know, they're just so out of touch with everything. Like they're going through stuff that is way worse than anything I'm going to go through. Like these people and anyone that puts a comment on social media, for me, I don't care. I love it. In fact, I applaud it. In fact, I want people to do it because it helps my videos get more views and more likes. Like it pushes it out to the algorithm, so I don't care. Doesn't really affect me at all. So I think that the thing is that you really have to get in your head is like, if someone's really trying to tear you down or trying to bully you or whatever you want to call it, they're going through something 10 times worse. I can assure you that.
To get to the stage where you've reached now, your level of community, you run clubs and all that, everyone faces a difficult time or a hard time. I know you've gone through a couple recently. You talked about the social media incident that happened, like 9 months ago or something?
9 months ago, yeah.
You also lost a really close friend as well. And I don't want to go, it's not that I don't want to go, I don't want you to feel like you have to go into the depths, but you can. But how does that affect one growing up? Because you're young, you lose one of your best mates, and then there's a whole array of emotions that come with that. So firstly, what happened? And then secondly, how did you take time to process all of that?
This is something that I don't and haven't really spoken too much about. Like, out of respect for the family and my friends involved. But I have spoken about it, and like, Henry was my best mate at college, and he was everyone's best mate. You know, like, he was one of those guys. My sister is like, loves him as well. You know, like, they would just everyone's best friend, and it's really interesting when people pass away, because everyone's like, oh, he was the best person ever. It's like, this guy actually was the best person ever. You know, he was like, just everything he did, it was just with a smile on his face. And for me, when he passed away, he was hit by a drunk driver walking home from a night out on New Year's. And like, this was the biggest reality check for me in my entire life, that like, something or someone that you're with on a night out can all of a sudden, you wake up the next day and they're not there. It's like, what the hell? This is someone that I've spent years of my life with, like roommates at college. It's like, we've, shared all these moments together, and just gone, taken away from you. And for me, it was a really difficult thing, because, people post on social media, and it's like, everyone knows. And then people kind of start to treat you a bit differently as well. And for me, I didn't really know how to deal with it. And a lot of my memories, obviously, at college with Henry were kind of going out and drinking and that type of stuff. So I was like, well, if Henry was here, he'd want me to keep going with my life and keep going out and drinking, kind of thing. And it wasn't unhealthy. It was just like a happy thing that we would always do. And so I thought that drinking and going out every weekend would be a good way to kind of like remember him. So that's what I did for 6 months, just like a lot of beers. I was drinking before footy games and stuff. Something I'd never done before. Yeah. And I was playing like VFL, so I was like playing a high level of footy, and I was like having beers before games and stuff.
That's
and it's like, and people were like, "What's wrong with this kid?" And I'm like, I didn't know. I just didn't really know. I didn't know how to deal with it. So yeah, that was a pretty hectic experience for me, and I just needed to get my head straight. And it was about 6 months through that year when I really picked my stuff up, and I was like, changed my whole business from pandemic training to prime train, and started doing TikToks and started posting on social media. And I was like, hold on a second, like, this is what Henry would want me to do. And that was a big thing for me, because I was able to be self-aware and be like, and a lot of my decisions were kind of predicated on, this is what Henry would want me to do. And eventually I channeled that into something positive.
That's, I can't imagine what it's like to lose a best friend, but it's something where obviously, you take something out of every experience, positive or negative, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like that you took a really interesting detour in your own personal life, navigating through that. I guess once you changed to prime training, the next thing for you was building that business, and to move from quite a somber topic to quite a topic now that's inspiring. I mean, to think that you've gone from a PT that didn't know what exactly he was doing for his sister at the time, but created impact and change, through to having, lost a mate, to now running a successful business, right? At what stage did you feel like you had a grip of this business and a grip of this thing? Because when you start, like I've started a couple, you never got a grip of anything.
It's so true.
Yeah. Where do you find yourself? When did you find that you got yourself a grip of this business, this PT pro athlete programs that you now, supply a lot of different kids and adults with?
I still don't think that I've got the grip of it, like what you said. But I remember releasing my first personalized program, and it was still when I was called Pandemic Training. Released my first personalized program, and I was like checking the website to see if I'd sold anything. 0. Like for 2 weeks, I was like.
How many followers did you have at this stage?
So I had like 4, I think 3,000 or 4,000 followers.
Yeah.
And so I actually sold I sold 8-week body weight programs during COVID, and they were like quite crazy. Like they did quite well. And then I like tried to change my business and do like personalized programs where like COVID started to kind of wear off. And I was like, well, people are getting back into gyms. I move with the times. Let's change it. And I remember putting it up on my website, and I was like, oh, people are going to love this. And just no one bought it. I was like, oh, shit. I was like, oh, God. And that's when I went through a whole business rebrand. And I was like, well, I've got to change everything. And so I did. I changed everything, and I realized that the number one focus is like, I'm not going to sell anything if I'm just posting kind of to my organic followers. It's like, how can I get to the big world out there? And it was pretty much free advertising at the time, TikTok. Like you post on and you could get 100,000 views pretty easily if it was something controversial. So it wasn't as saturated of a market. And I'm like, and I remember just scrolling on TikTok all the time, like scrolling. I deleted the app like 6 or 7 times. And I got to the stage where I was like, hold on, reverse psychology this for 1 second. If you're so addicted to it, why don't you start creating content on it? Because other people are obviously going to be addicted to it too. So be part of the problem and not the solution, I guess. And there I was, just posting heaps and every day. And that was kind of the start of it. And then once I realized that I think when I started to make good sales, I started to feel like I really got a grip of it. For me, the most rewarding thing was when I first released Prime Unwind, which is like the leisure wear side of the business last year. And we sold like 1,000 hoodies in an hour. And I was like, that was the first time where I was like, this is bigger than just programs. Like this is a genuine following of people that want to invest in Prime Train or Prime Unwind, or they want to get the subs, they want to get everything. And that was the first time I was like, wow, like I have the power here to not only change people's life with a program, but also like, give them clothes on their back as well. And I was like, wow, that was the first time I was like, this business could be anything, or it could be everything. And yeah, that was probably the first time I was like, oh, I've got a grip on this, and I can really ride this. And that was a really exciting kind of period. And then I had the social media issues. So we went back to square one and kind of rejigged it all, which was, again, a really exciting process.
Good on you. I guess to finish off, your knowledge around helping people be able to get the most out of themselves from pro athlete programming and weight loss programming and strength building programming is something that you do day in, day out. Mm-hmm. Everyone might see you on social media from the footy and all that, but at the end of the day, you've got a brain behind putting programs together, and that's come through experience, and obviously it's come through transformations. What are the top 3 things that someone needs to know if they want to transform their body, okay, from, let's say, skinny and I go to the gym and I can't put on weight, to I want to look like you that's got a 6-pack and the veins are popping, mm-hmm. and I'm ready to get out to the beach? What are the top 3 things I need to know to get from that to this as soon as possible?
The number one thing, what is the number one thing? I'm tossing up between 2 number one things.
Doesn't need to be number one, just give me 3 things.
Give you 3, okay. The first thing is going to be make sure you sort out your diet. Like I think the diet is one of the number one things on earth at the moment people are confused about.
What about diet do I need to know? Like people talk about macros, you need a certain amount of carbs, proteins, fats. They talk about keto, they talk about intermittent fasting.
Don't get me started on the diet world, man. It is the most confusing place you would ever go to find information. It's so hard because I don't even want to get into it, but if you're trying to lose weight, you've got keto that worked for someone, and then you've got, just a calorie deficit that worked for someone, and they both worked for both of those people. So both of them think that they're the only way. And then they like fight each other in the comments. And then you've got all these other, it's like, just realize that there's other ways to do things. It doesn't have to, it's not a one size fits all. So I think that the main thing for diet is try and eat unprocessed whole foods as much as possible. That would be one of the most important things if you're trying to build muscle, lose fat. High protein is essential no matter what you're doing. That's just a blanket statement. Try and aim for 2 grams per kilo of body weight. So if I'm 80 kilos, try and eat 160 grams of protein every single day minimum. That is going to be the building blocks for your muscles. It's going to keep you fuller for longer if you're trying to lose weight. It's just essential. High protein, eat whole foods, but also don't be a caged animal. Eat foods that you want to eat. If you want to have an almond croissant once a week, please do not stop yourself from doing that, because you have to live your life as well. So that's essential. But I think that, diet is a big thing. Eat whole foods, protein, like I said. The second thing is, and I was debating in my own head if this was the most important with diet and nutrition, so I'll put it as equal one. But get a disciplined routine of if it's waking up early in the mornings, that really works for me. So 5 a.m. every morning, I'm awake. I don't snooze my alarm. I'm up, I'm at 'em, I'm doing things. That discipline is the first building block of saying what you're going to do and doing it. That building block and that domino is going to go into if you're going to work out today or not. If I wake up and snooze my alarm, already in my head, I'm like, that's the first loss of the day. And it's already in my head, I'm an imposter. I've lost the first battle of the day. And then when I've got my next battle, which is going to the gym or not going to the gym, I'm more likely to lose that battle as well, because I've already lost my first battle. So if you can get a disciplined routine of waking up early every morning, that's the first battle. You hit that, then you go to the gym. Then when you eat, you see that, cheesecake for the 4th day in a row. You're like, no, I'm actually not going to eat that today. I'm going to choose to have a protein shake or something like that. Those little wins in your head will make all the difference. And then the third thing is just, weight training 3 to 4 times a week. Do it. Doesn't matter if you're a male or female. I've been weight training for 7 years. I don't look like Sam Sulek, right? If you're a girl, still go weight train. You're not going to get massive, bulky, huge. It will change your body composition. It will speed up your metabolism. It's just essential to weight train, I think, 3 to 4 times a week. I think that's my top 3.
Nice. I find it really interesting because I know as growing up, I was super skinny. I could fit behind a goalpost. It was fucked, yeah. And one of the biggest things for me was I want to get muscly. I want to put on weight. And so I think, a couple of key points you mentioned, obviously having, 2 grams per kilo of protein is really important. Being able to make sure that you have good whole foods, you have a sustainable approach. All these things are vital for people to make change, and that change takes time.
Yeah.
It takes fucking time.
Yeah.
Like you said, you've been training for 7 years.
Yeah.
And so, it was really interesting. I was listening to someone speak the other day, and it's become the person that you want to be rather than be the person that has to do what you have to do. Love it. So if you want to be the person you want to be, you're going to learn that you're going to wake up at 5, that you're going to be disciplined, that you're going to enjoy the idea of gym, enjoy the idea of diet, and you're doing things to be making that a sustainable change.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you get injured, and what are you going to do? Oh, fuck it.
I can't be bothered.
I can't be.
It's so true. You've got to enjoy the process. And if you don't like going to the gym, go do boxing. Go play a social sport, play netball or something. Look, I say go to the gym, but a lot of people don't like going to the gym. They just don't like it and they won't do it. So find another way to move your body that might be able to build muscle for you, or, might be able to help you lose fat. That is the best way to go. Find things that you enjoy. Same with your diet. If you don't really like whole foods and you like waking up every day and having oats, have oats every day. it has to be sustainable, and you have to enjoy your life as well. Just find where it fits in. And as well, I think it depends how old you are, but try and cut out alcohol for a period of time, and then see if you want to go back to it after that.
Final question. It's great to see people doing well. Yeah. Tall poppy syndrome's a massive issue. So if you don't fear it, can you tell me where is it that you want to see your business go in the next year?
I would like to have my own gym space. That's a big goal over the next 12 months. And it's something that I've been waiting for to do. And I feel like now it's finally the time to do it. And then for me, is to continue to build the brand. You know, I've got the subs, which I'm really going to be pushing a lot harder this year. I'm fortunate enough to be traveling around and doing 12 games in 12 different kind of places over the next 12 weeks, just like kicking the footy, and I'll just be giving out protein samples. I'll be giving out shirts and everything. It's like, just build the brand, but like also build a community of people that follow it and that love it and that wear it and that have it, you know? So that's going to be a really big focus for me. I think that, the big focus though is getting my own gym space and office space and having that in the next 12 months. But I'm really excited to see where the brand kind of goes in the next 12 months.
If people want to support your brand, where do they find you? And what are the avenues that they can reach out to you?
Hit me up on Instagram anytime. I'll respond to most of my DMs. I'd say 95% of them. So Prime Train on Instagram, Prime Train on TikTok, and then primetrain.com.au if you're looking for any subs, gym gear, workouts, whatever it might be, leisure wear. I'm always there to help.
Bro, thank you. Thank you for coming on. It's been awesome, and you know, I hope to have you back on, because talking deep about confidence, talking deep about brand, and then seeing where you take your brand over the next 12 months is going to be pretty awesome.
Thank you so much for having me, mate.
Well done, bro.
Appreciate you.
Well done.
Awesome.
Well done.